Coffee and Headlines is brought to you by the generous support of our viewers and the following community partners: Best Cord Cutting TV, Bravo's Restaurant Bar, El Rey Lounge de Versalles, Joint Boutique Hotel and Cowork, Monson Brewing Company, Puerto Vallarta Neurofeedback, Puerto Vallarta Owners Reps, Oculto, and Siam Cocina Thai. Thank you for your support, and thank you for supporting our community partners. Oh, wow. We start with great news for Kathy. Kathy, congratulations on getting approved for temporary residence. Let's get the wood out.
Woot woot! Almost done.
Yay! Welcome to Coffee and Headlines, our morning get together. This is live. I am here. This is not pre recorded. And I make that distinction because in the past, whenever I've done these narrated walking tours, sometimes I've left them pre recorded, but I wanted to be with you today to answer any questions you may have about what I'm going to show you, which is you're going to be a fly in the wall watching me walk from the Guadalajara bus terminal to downtown, ending up in my hotel bed. Well, I won't show you that part because you don't really want to see that. But if you have any questions about what it's like to get to Guadalajara today, that is what we're going to do. No weather, no news, just a big old walking tour that's going to take us about an hour. So if you want to sit around and keep me company, that is awesome. If you have things to do, that's okay too. But the good news is this is going to be uploaded to YouTube, and you'll be able to come back to it whenever you're feeling the urge to go to Guadalajara. But as always, I look forward to your capital letter Q's so that I know that you have questions for me. Otherwise, I'll just assume you're having a lovely conversation amongst yourselves. Let's get on the road. Okay, let me get comfy here with all my gadgets. First of all, a quick lay of the land, because yesterday I just showed you a walk, but I didn't really give you a reference on the map. So let's fix that. In yesterday's walk, and I will add a little clicky thing for those of you watching on YouTube later on. There's going to be a link to the walk from yesterday. Here is my, well, not my hotel. Here's the hotel where I stayed. This is the HVH Hotel. And here is where the symphony is. And what we did yesterday is we pretty much walked down Juarez, stopped in front of the Basilica of the cathedral, and then ended up at the Teatro de Gollado, which is where I went to hear my concert. Now, today, let me go back over here. We're going to look exactly at the same map, but I'm going to show you the walk that I took to get to my hotel. What does this mean? Well, you know, for starters, I could have gotten off the subway here and I could have just walked to my hotel here, but, you know, I had some errands to do and I wanted to look around. So I got off the subway one terminal before my usual place. So this is what we're going to look at today. I stopped at the music store, and then I stopped at Telas Parisina, and then I went to the Witchy Market. Then I went to a crafting store. Then I went to my favorite yarn store, and eventually I made it to my hotel. Why? Because that's just the way things worked out. So let's have a look at what we got here. And we start with The bus, of course, I was the last one off the bus. There were not that many people on the bus, actually. But I was the last one because I wanted to take my time grabbing my gimbal and my camera and getting off the bus. Of course, this is a two-story luxury bus from ETN, and we are starting our journey. Now, this is not the Zapopan terminal. A lot of times we want to get off the bus in Zapopan because from Zapopan to the Guadalajara main terminal adds an extra hour to the trip. But again, I was not in a hurry to get anywhere. The bus was air conditioned. I had my audiobook, I had my crochet. So I'm perfectly fine going all the way to the main terminal because I can walk from the main terminal to the subway. And then from the subway, I can do what I'm about to show you today. So the advantage of doing an extra hour on the bus is that once you're on the subway, it'll take you the same amount of time or less than if you get off in Zapopan and take an Uber because there's no easy public transportation there. So it all adds up in the wash. It adds up in the wash, adds up in the mix. It ends up being irrelevant as far as I'm concerned. That's what I'm trying to say. Plus, I am traveling by myself on this particular trip. Whenever I'm traveling with friends, the Uber can be split or whatever. This is totally less expensive. Now, if you look at that black thing in the back, that's where we're going to end up at the subway. We could have crossed through the parking lot, but it's more complicated to explain. So we're going to just do our walk. Now, there are a lot of different bus lines that end up here. For that matter, you could be arriving at the bus terminal from other places. Maybe you are coming here from Querétaro or from Guanajuato or from Ajijic. This will serve you just as well if you are any of the if you're arriving at this terminal. I can see that Sherry get off in Zapopan and then Uber to the hotel. That makes perfect sense to me. Again, it can be more convenient to do it that way. But then, you never know exactly what traffic is going to be like in Guadalajara. I have my water ready because we're going to be here for a while. Of course, all these taxi cab drivers are going to say hello and they're going to offer you um, a ride. And what are you going to do? You're going to say no gracias because that means no thank you. And while we're talking language, as always, I remind you that here in Puerto Vallarta, we are cradled by a lot of bilingual people, so it's very easy to get around. Once you get out of tourist destinations or international tourist destinations like Puerto Vallarta, you do want to be mindful of the fact that not everybody out there is going to understand you if you do not speak Spanish. So it's always better, particularly if you're doing this for the first time, that you travel with a Spanish speaking companion. Just to be safe and to avoid disappointments. So the bus terminal has a lot of places where you can sit down and eat, and or you can buy munchies to bring on board. These are usually a little bit more expensive, and you will find as we were walking down the side of this block on the left-hand side, there's a bunch of food stands that tend to be more economic. I think this is common in any bus terminal, maybe with the exception of Puerto Vallarta's. That's not true. There's a couple of taco stands around the corner from the bus terminal here in Puerto Vallarta, where if you want to grab an economic bite, you can do that. Certainly not at 7:30 in the morning, which is the time at which I left Puerto Vallarta. And so I arrived in the main station like 5.5 hours later. There was a lot of traffic. So if I left 7, 8, 9, 10, it was like between 12:30 and 1 o'clock when I recorded this. Now, Guadalajara has lots of beautiful green buses and stuff like that. I will not tell you that I know how to navigate the bus system in Guadalajara. I actually don't. I don't spend enough time in Guadalajara to to try to be adventurous with the buses. But now that I know the subway is absolutely awesome, particularly since it's only one line that we need to concern ourselves to get to the places where I'm going to go. Claude, oh my God, I'm so glad you're here. Oh my God. I'm so glad you're here. Maybe I'm going to see you before I go back to Guadalajara. Maybe not, but I know I'm shopping for you in Guadalajara. I didn't shop for you in Guadalajara last weekend because I was in a hurry. But this, I know what you want, and I'm going to get it, and you're going to get it, and I love you very much. Enough said. Let's see what else. Pamela says, this is so informative. I am ashamed to admit we have been here full time for 3 years and haven't been to Guadalajara. No shame. There should be no shame. You know, when the time comes, I know you will make it and I know you will love it. So here we are going around the corner and you can see the elevated train tracks. Now in Guadalajara, they call this the light train. I call it the subway just out of habit. And that big black building, whoops, that is, I was trying to cross and I figured, no, I cannot cross here. I'm going to jaywalk a little bit further ahead. But that is what the terminals, the outdoor terminals look like. This is Línea 3 or line 3 of the subway. And it stays above ground for a while, then it goes underground. Do 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 do. Dee, 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 dee. I see some of you have been in Guadalajara before. Michael says, I can't wait to visit again. I love going back and forth to Guadalajara whenever my budget and time allow for it. And for me, the irony is I end up going to many of the same places, and it's always wonderful. And um, I always try to add a little bit to the mix. John says, "Oh my God, no sidewalk bus is going to take you out." You know, there are some places where there are sidewalks. There are some places that don't have them or they're not as wide. So all you have to do, John, is look in all the proper directions and have some common sense. Um, I don't know if this is for me. If this is for me, it's not until the 8th of July, so we still have some time to go. Da, da, dee, 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 dee. Lots of activity. Now, you're probably thinking, what do I need to do to hop on this darn thing? Well, you need to have a ticket or you need to have a bus card or a transportation card. I have the transportation card. We've talked about this in other broadcasts. Those people waiting in line on the right hand side, they're waiting in line to either purchase a one time ticket or to recharge their travel card. Now, I choose not to recharge mine here because there's always a line. So I still had credit on my card. So I just went up the escalator and I actually refilled my card at another instance. But you will not be able to get in with cash. You need to pay for your ticket. If you're buying a one time ticket, it is 10 pesos. But if you're in Puerto Vallarta and you use the bus here in town, it's easiest to just get a brand new card. You can get it downstairs where people were charging, and then you can use it here in Puerto Vallarta as well. You can recharge it with an app on your phone, or you can recharge it at some OXXO. So here I go. There's my lovely card, and there it goes. And there I go. Harold has a good point here. Línea 3, which is where we're hopping, is great for viewing the city. It's only subway through El Centro. This is true. And the train was about to leave. I figured, do I rush it? And I figured, nah, I'm not in a hurry. Let time flow. Now, this is the last station on this line. So as soon as it's time to get on board, you will notice that people are rushing in to try to get a seat. I couldn't blame them. I would do the same thing, but I was dealing with my camera and I just didn't feel the urge to get all crazy about sitting down. I had been sitting down for 5 hours, so it was probably good for my back to not sit down again. It took about 5 minutes for the train to come. These trains are programmed to scheduled to swing by very frequently. Look at the mad rush for the sitting down. Look, hurry, hurry, hurry. Yeah, not me. I just stood and off we go. Of course, the subway is comfortable, it's air conditioned. So even if you're standing, I mean, you can actually get from one side of the line to the other in less than 30 minutes or maybe a little bit more than that. So if you wanted to get all the way to Zapopan, um, you can do that very quickly. Claude asks, do they run 24 hours? Actually, I don't know. I'm never laid out, so I don't know. Okay, so this is just 2 stops after the bus terminal is the stop for Tlaquepaque, which is another very popular destination. If I was staying in Tlaquepaque, you can just get off the bus. I mean, get off the subway at Tlaquepaque. It's only 2 stops. You cannot really see it as you're looking out the window, but once you get off on this upcoming station, it takes you less than 10 minutes to walk to the tourist area in Tlaquepaque. Or alternatively, if you're staying in downtown and you just want to go spend a few hours in Tlaquepaque, the most economical way to do it is to just hop on this subway line and take the subway to Tlaquepaque. And it's very, very easy to do. So now we are approaching Independencia stop. And it's always an act of God getting off the train. You can always hope that a lot of people in front of you are getting off where you're getting off. It's never happened to me that it's so crowded that I cannot get off at my stop. So here we go. Con permiso. Out of the way. Queen with a mission. And here we are. Again, I stopped at Independencia stop, 1 stop before the downtown area, because I was running all these errands. Is Guadalajara hot and humid like PV in the rainy season? No. It gets warm, but it's never as humid as Puerto Vallarta. Never, ever, ever. And Sherry is correct. Tlaquepaque is fabulous. Is the bus station too far to Uber? It'll take some time. It'll cost some money. Like, I don't think it's more than 200 pesos. But if I was going to Uber, I would want to get off the bus in Tlaquepaque because you get off the bus a lot sooner, or 1 hour sooner. Da, 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 da. Oh, another thing about the subway, when I get off the train and I go upstairs to the exits, I never exactly remember if I'm going to end up at the specific corner that I expect to be at. More often than not, I always end up at a different corner, but it's never a big deal because usually these this subway exits extend through maybe 1 or 2 blocks. So the worst thing that can happen is once you're out at street level, you whip out your Google map to know exactly where you are, and then you correct your um, direction, whichever way you're going. Needless to say, I was traveling light. I had my backpack um, on my back with my clothes, and in the front I had my usual travel pouch. So it's easy to navigate. I would not recommend doing the subway if you have like a lot of luggage. So here we go. My hunch is that I'm exiting through the right exit, and I quickly confirmed that I did. But for me, it's just a matter of luck. One thing, and this is purely technical, I expected my camera to adjust automatically from the light in the subway to the sunlight, but it didn't. So I came out of the subway and everything looked kind of like bluish, as you can see. And I was like, what the fuck? So I needed to stop my recording here and restart it again. Do, do, do. There you go. So there is, by the way, that hotel, Hotel Alcázar, which we just passed. I think we stayed there. That's the hotel where we stayed some time ago. Betsy was with me on that trip. Do you remember that hotel, Betsy? So my first stop is heading to a music store. So I'm walking down Calzada Revolución. Lori says, thank you for sharing. You make me now want to go there. Well, that's the general intention, Lori. This is what we do here at Coffee and Headlines, create connections. You choose to take the connections that make sense to you. So if it makes sense to you to go to Guadalajara at some point, I hope this is helpful and I hope it inspires you. I really do. Um, and speaking of hotels, across the street is, I think it's called the Aranzazu. That's another budget hotel that I've stayed at. Aranzazu, yes, that's the Aranzazu Hotel. If you're looking for budget hotels in Guadalajara, that's another one to consider. Harold says, how is the directional information signage in the subway stations? It is good if you know the name of your streets. If you don't know the name of your streets, again, you could easily end up exiting the subway at the wrong exit. So all you want to do is whip out your GPS phone and reorient yourself. Doo-dee-doo-doo. We are approaching one of many plazas and parks and churches that you find in downtown Guadalajara. This particular one is the San Francisco Plaza or San Francisco Garden. It is located next to the Temple of St. Francis. And there is the Temple of St. Francis. We watch for crossing. Always make sure that you watch. Remember, pedestrians have a different hierarchy in Mexico than in other countries. Oh shit, I ran out of water. We still have about half an hour to go, so I hope you're enjoying this. If you're enjoying this, give me a thumbs up, give me a heart. Now, needless to say, some of these structures have been there for hundreds and hundreds of years. So, the one thing that you will appreciate in Guadalajara if you're traveling for the first time is the sense of the modern and the sense of the historic. It is just amazing. Pamela says, I want to go, but I want to go with you. Let's set a date, my friend. Sherry says, this is so fun to see, especially since I recognize most things well. I hope this brings good memories. And every time I say your name, my phone thinks I'm talking to it. And I'm saying the SIRI word, which I don't mean to. Now, this hotel in the corner is another one of those traditional historic hotels, Hotel Morales. It is not inexpensive, but it's a good place to go and sit down and have a margarita. Now, I was not hungry enough, but this taco place, Los Faroles, this yellow taco place, oh my God, if you're on a budget, this is a great place for tacos. But it was too early for me. I was not yet hungry, but I did stop by and look that you can get 5 tacos and a soda for 110 pesos. That is like $5. But I was not hungry. Not meant to be. So I stopped here at La Flauta Mágica. This is one of my favorite music stores. I needed to get a small notebook with staff writing. I needed to, you'd think you can find a staff notebook to write down music here in Puerto Vallarta. Ha ha. So I did that and I left. And I went back towards the taco place. Still not hungry. So I figured I'm going to continue. So this taco place, FYI, is at the corner of Ramon Corona and Prisciliano Sanchez. So I'm going to take a right back onto Ramon Corona and I'm going to walk down 16 de septiembre. Now, 16 de septiembre, we saw yesterday in the walking tour. And I mentioned that it used to be like 6 or 7 lanes wide, but it's now just open to vehicular traffic. Well, such is the case, but we are going to start on 16 de septiembre a little earlier, so you will see that there are 2 lanes for vehicular traffic only as soon as we get to this corner. Pamela says, are you writing music? The answer is yes. So here we are. This is 16 de septiembre. Notice that there's a temporary travel lane on the right-hand side. There's another one on the other side, but for the most part, this is only pedestrian or skateboard or, it's a walking street. And you walk through the center of it. And there are stores and more stores and businesses and more businesses. And these tiny water features, look at them in the middle of the street or in the middle of the walkway. Keith says, it looks like an incredible city. Thanks for sharing. I will have to consider this for a 2026 trip. I love Guadalajara, and I love that our capital city is so easy to get to. Jerome says, I've been to mostly Central Guadalajara, but these areas are totally new to me, so thanks for sharing. Well, this is also part of downtown Guadalajara. There's just so much to explore when you're walking around it, Jerome. And there's different stuff wherever you go. Love the little water features. Thanks for watching, Betsy Ann. Come back to this whenever you want. It's going to be on YouTube. Oh, Angelica, I don't know when was the last time you went to Guadalajara, but there are so many trees. I read your comment earlier saying that Guadalajara is not humid because of the trees. I'm not so sure about that. I mean, it's probably not humid because it's higher up in altitude. But there's just so many trees. Now we're reaching the end of this section of 16 de Septiembre. You can see the cathedral coming up on the background, and we're reaching the intersection with Avenida Juarez, which is where we turned yesterday to head to Teatro de Gollado. As you can see, this is Juarez Avenue coming up. This is the same avenue that it becomes pedestrian only on Sundays. And once I cross the street, it is truly pedestrian only. Still not very hungry. Happy to be able to run my errands. My intention was I'll run my errands, I'll grab a bite, and then I'll go to the hotel and I'll take a disco nap before I go to the concert. And that's exactly what I did. But not yet. So here we go. Now, this is the same walk that I did last night, or I did yesterday. We walked down this section of Avenida Juarez, which is, of course, now called Paseo Alcalde. There's the building on the left. That's a DoubleTree Hotel. We mentioned that. And on the next block is the One Hotel on the left side. Very convenient, but more expensive. Thanks for watching, Keith. Come back to watch on YouTube whenever you want. And now I'm going to take a left turn here. Well, I wanted to show you the main garden. That behind this little plaza is the Palacio de Gobierno. This is where the government does its work for the city of Guadalajara. And I'm taking this walkway on Pedro Moreno because I wanted to head to Telas Parisina. I wanted to see if this Parisina hotel had as much yarn as the Parisina. Did I say Parisina Hotel? It's not a hotel. It's a fabric store, Paco. Anyhow, I've mentioned that here in Puerto Vallarta, the new expanded Parisina in Macro Plaza has a lot of yarn on the second story. And I wanted to check out and compare what was the yarn supply at this particular Parisina, which is 3 stories big. Was I shopping for yarn? No. I actually said to myself, no yarn from Parisina, but I still had to look. It was on the way. Call it window shopping. So here's Parisina, 3 stories. And I found what I was looking for, but I didn't shop for anything, I promise. And this is me leaving Parisina. And I'm going to walk to the left down Calle Colón for a couple of blocks. And we are heading down to Avenida Hidalgo or Hidalgo Avenue. My next stop is at the Mercado Corona or the Corona Market, where you can find a lot of witchy stuff, alternative healing stuff, pomades, and all kinds of stuff. I usually like to buy incense there and all kinds of things. Jerome says, I stayed at the Doubletree Hotel. When I visited, very convenient to everything, absolutely. Harold says, is there still an underground shopping plaza below? The answer is yes. Pamela says, gonna go see Amy tonight at Nacho Daddy's. Thank you for reminding me of that. Tonight is Amy's final performance. There is our cathedral, and it looks a little tilted. I know, not my intention. Among all these stores, just as an FYI, there's always a Farmacia Guadalajara. There's always a Kiosco or an Oxxo. They're easy to find. I don't know why my gimbal was not correcting the horizon whenever I turned. I need to calibrate it, but that's not a major ordeal. Never knew there was an underground plaza. Yep, there's a whole underground mall. The city of Guadalajara is having a challenging time getting people to keep their shops open down there. It doesn't get a lot of traffic anymore. So here we are turning left down Avenida Hidalgo. We are 1 block away from all the yarn stores and all the craft stores that I love to explore. But again, I was running a special errand at the witchy market. There's a big debate in Guadalajara. Guadalajara is trying to get rid of horse carriages, which are the traditional horse carriages that have existed forever. But of course, you know, being a horse must not be fun when all you're doing is walking around in the pavement. So I think a lot of these are now electrical. And in fact, I was intrigued by this charging station. I do believe I stopped. Yes, I did. This is official ecological vehicles owned or run or operated by the government, and they are for government employees. And there is Mercado Corona on the right-hand side. It looks very modern, but this is one of the oldest mercados in Guadalajara. It burned to the ground twice in its history. So in the last time it burned to the ground, it was just rebuilt and turned into this modern-looking place. How old is Guadalajara? Oh my God, I think it's got to be at least 250 years, if not older. I would have to Google it, Claude, but it is an old city. This stop was for you, Claude, by the way, and you know what I was looking for. So here we are. The Corona Market is this very eclectic combination of backpacks, inexpensive food, and witchery stuff. And I love going in here. How long did it take you to figure out the subway system? You know, once I did it once, it was like a no-brainer because I mostly have used the Línea 3 because Línea 3 conveniently gets me wherever I want to go. But it is not that complicated. So here we are at the witchy market. Again, incense, pomades, spells. If you believe in it, you'll find it here. Oh, thank you for that, Harold. Guadalajara is 483 years old. I cannot get to my Google search and broadcast at the same time. Thank you very much for that, Pamela. Founded in 1542. So I found what I was looking for. I got hungry and I stopped at this taco place and had some tacos. And then after eating, I continued on my way. Thank you for that other factoid, Angelica, one of the first cities built after the conquest. So many places so many places to eat in that shopping center. It's hard to decide where to eat. This is very true, Sherry. Peggy says, I've only been to Tlaquepaque and Tonalá. Next trip will be to Guadalajara. Well, the beautiful thing, Peggy, is that you can come back to the metropolitan area and you feel like you're in a completely different city. There have been times in which I've gone to Guadalajara just to be in Tlaquepaque, and it was a different trip. So it all depends on what brings you to the city to begin with. This time around, I wanted to go to Teatro de Gollado to hear the symphony, so it made perfect sense for me to stay in this section of town. So my next stop is at Fantasías Miguel, which is a crafting store that is so full of chingaderas. It's not even funny. I was looking for, well, I'm not going to tell you what I'm looking for because it was a surprise for someone that might be watching. So I'm not saying. So this store that I'm going to walk into is kind of like the equivalent of going into a Michael's in the United States or Canada. It's just like lots of crafting stuff. And it's not the only one. The peculiarity of many cities in Mexico is that like all the crafting stores will be in one neighborhood and all the yarn stores will be in another neighborhood. Here, I tried to saunter in with my camera running, but they said to me, I can't do that. I had to check in my bag, but then they ended up letting me not check my bag. So I did my research and I left the store. And right across the street, it's one of the danger yarn stores, Estambre Santa Teresa, but I figured I'm not going to go there today. Because I was trying to avoid temptation. Santa Teresita, not Santa Teresa. But all the yarn stores, all the sewing notion stores are located in this neighborhood, which makes it very convenient for yours truly. Is August a good time to go weather-wise? I think August is a lovely time to visit Guadalajara. Can you repeat the name of the shopping center? I saw beads. If you were referring to the crafting store that I went into, it was called Fantasias Miguel, and it is full. There's a lot of beads in there. So now I'm going to take a right onto Ocampo Street. Ocampo Street is pedestrian only, but here's a final look at Mercado Corona. And this is another one of my temples because this is the street where like the ladies sit down on the benches to crochet and sell their wares. There's one on the left side. And I swear, every time I get a chance, I sit on one of those benches and I crochet just for the sake of it. And here is my favorite yarn store. And I'm going to walk in because here I did need to make a purchase because I ran out of a very specific yarn. So I walked in and I got what I needed and I left. I was so disappointed to hear that they're going to close the store in just a few months. They're just not making. Yes, there is spam, Sherry. No worries. That'll disappear on its own. So I actually figured, do I want to shop now or do I want to shop until tomorrow? So I decided I'm not going to shop today. I'm going to shop tomorrow. And this is actually not quite true, Angelica. Mercado Corona was never, or maybe it may have been San Juan de Dios at the beginning, but San Juan de Dios is a different market. It's the largest market in Latin America, and it is located within walking distance. So I'm back on Ocampo Street, and I want to return to Avenida Juarez, which is where now I'm heading to my hotel. I've finished running my errands, and now I'm heading to the hotel. I've had a little bite. I've done the research that I needed to do. Again, this was more of a research walk because I'm going back to Guadalajara this weekend. Now for 2 nights. It takes a strong person to walk out of that shop without buying anything. Well, if you don't have any money in your wallet, there's only so much you can buy anyway. So for me, it was a no-brainer. Shout out to the 45 of you that are still watching live. Much appreciated. And shout out to the silent majority that will get to this walk later on. If you're ever with questions about Guadalajara, just go to my website, Paco/Ojeda. What is my website? Well, it's always in the show notes. You know where to find me if you have questions about Guadalajara. Did I consider moving to Guadalajara? Not really, because I was looking for a strong English-speaking community, and I was looking to be in the ocean. So it was not one of my top choices. But thanks for the question, Chris. If it matters, by the way, because I saw somebody walking by wearing shorts. It's not that common to see guys wearing shorts in Guadalajara. It gets warmer in the summer months. Of course, I was wearing shorts because I had just left Puerto Vallarta, and I've reached that age in which I don't give a shit what people think. Of course, when you go to the concert, you dress up, particularly if it's a nighttime concert. But when we go to the opera matinees, I still go to the opera matinees wearing shorts because I can. So there. And here we are back on Juarez Street. Again, this is the street that we walked, that I shared with you walking last night or yesterday. This is a street that if you keep going on your car, you'll end up in Puerto Vallarta. but not today. I am 2 blocks away from my hotel, and I am ready to chill. Of course, it's probably around 2:30 in the afternoon by the time I'm doing this. I know that my check-in time is 3 o'clock. More often than not, hotels allow you to get into your room um, early. And if you get to Guadalajara and your room is not ready, what the thing to do is just leave your bags with the people at the hotel and just go run errands and come back when it's ready. Barbara says your walking tour today has rekindled a strong desire to visit Guadalajara again. That's what we're here for, Barbara, to create and inspire connections. Oh, remember we talked about this last night? There is that building, the telephone company building that had to be moved in its entirety to when this avenue was broadened, and there is a sculpture that celebrates the engineer that made it all possible. Turn around, Paco, turn around. There he is. I'm glad you're enjoying this, Linda. Yay. Love, love, love this tour. Sherry, well, you've been there. You know how to do it. You know how to get back. So you got it all figured out. There's the Soriana that I mentioned yesterday. Thank you for watching, Vicky. Um, I knew that I wanted to narrate something for this one, and I thought I would do it on my own and just like have it ready to pre-record and to upload. But I figured it would be a lot more fun with you keeping me company. So I'm happy to have done it this way, and I'm glad you're enjoying both the tour and the narration. Now, this is the same avenue that I walked, that I shared with you yesterday. You remember we were walking um, around 7:30 in the evening, quarter to 8, and it's perfectly walkable and it's very safe. I mean, you take the same precautions that you would take when you're visiting any large city, but I never feel unsafe walking this part of Guadalajara. Now, I've reached the hotel. It's right here on the right hand side. And of course, I checked in. My room was ready. And I bet you're wondering, what does the hotel room look like? Well, guess what? Here we go, up the elevator. Again, this is called the HVH by Yaxche. And every time I look it up on Expedia, it has a great, great rate. I think for this one, they had a special, and it was like 550 pesos a night, which is around 50 US. Not my first choice. When I'm traveling with friends, I like to stay at the Portobello, which is just 2 blocks away. But for me and myself, this was perfectly appropriate because I was just here to crash, not to, sit around and enjoy the room, etc., etc. The light sensors were a little wonky, but who cares? That slide's going on automatically. And my room was actually open because they had just set it up. And here we are. It's a small room, but again, it's perfectly comfortable for a solo traveling experience. They do have larger rooms in this hotel, I should say, but again, this was the least expensive um, stay in Guadalajara. Oh my God, Corey, how great to see you. And this is it. Corey, your phone, which you regifted to me, is responsible for this tour. So I'm glad that you're here and watching. I look forward to seeing you when you come to Puerto Vallarta this December. And this brings us to the end of today's broadcast. This was much longer than usual, but I am glad to have brought you along. Again, every time I go away, I feel bad because I feel like I'm leaving you. But it is a pleasure to bring back nurturing connections. As always, I thank you for your company. I thank you for your support. You make this happen with your memberships and your coffee. So if you enjoyed today's walk, feel free to go to buymeacoffee.com/Ojeda Paco. Buy me a coffee. Maybe consider a membership if you found watching Coffee and Headlines useful. Or at the very least, I very much appreciate when you share knowledge of what we do here with your friends. This afternoon, of course, I am doing spotlight interviews, so I look forward to that. And tomorrow morning, more coffee, more headlines, more stories, and more connections. Thanks for watching. Oh, wait a second. Wait a second. I can do this.